What is up, all you real estate loving individuals? This is episode number 25 of the Real Estate Take podcast, and I'm your host, Wendell Butler. Is your go-to podcast with tons of information regarding the current real estate market, where we get various real estate professionals' current take on different areas of real estate. For today's guest, we have Artem Sopot. Artem started out in engineering with a vision of owning investments and transitioning from working a job to just having straight passive income. He started his investment journey a couple years ago in the Boston area where he currently lives. Today, he owns 11 units and is getting into active flips along with growing his buy and hold portfolio. Artem is actually a friend of mine, and we started investing in real estate together around the same time. So it's going to be great to talk to him, and you guys will love him. So let's introduce Artem in. Artem, how you doing?
How you doing? Honored to finally be on your podcast, man. Thank you.
Heck yeah, dude. We got to have you on. Yeah. So I just wanted to start with I know who you are, obviously, but I want the listeners to understand kind of who you are, where you came from, what you currently do, and just a kind of a background of like yourself. So just talk a little bit about who you are, what got you into real estate, and what is your backstory?
Sounds good. So real estate has always been kind of in the background for me. My parents have done some real estate and they actually do flipping houses in California, but it was never really something that was too much in my forefront. I helped out with some construction during the summers when I was in school. And then shortly after college, I read Robert Kiyosaki's book and thought, okay, passive income is a good idea because obviously you can't rely on your salary. But unfortunately, everything in California was way too expensive for me to get into, especially out of college. Then I looked at a couple turnkey companies out in the Midwest, but none of them really made too much sense. So I kind of put it on the back burner, did a number of years in my career, jumped around between Europe and working in a few other places. And when I finally settled in Boston, I was like, all right, I really got to do real estate. Let me get started. And right around that time, actually at my previous job, I met my mentor and real estate agent, who was also my boss at the time. And I just said, hey, I'm interested in real estate. I heard you're doing some. Would it be possible to just get started with like 10 or 20K and maybe make like $100 or $200 a month in cash flow? And he's like, hell yeah, you're going to make twice that, if not 3 times. I'm like, let's do it. And so literally within a month of meeting him, he found me my first condo rental. I bought it. I put in a tenant, was already making like $500 or $600 a month cash flow. And ever since, it was off the races.
Love that. So yeah, I think when we met, you had that condo and then you were starting to look, or you had like your first house hack in multifamily, because we were both around kind of the Worcester, Central Mass area. You were more in Boston towards that area as well. And we know that in that New England area, there's a lot of multifamilies. I think Worcester is like multifamily capital of like the US. Like every single house is like a duplex, a triplex, a 4-family. So yeah, like going back to getting into your first deals, can you give us like insight on kind of your approach with how you did that? And like, I know you mentioned like you didn't have a lot of capital to put into them. So like, what were some of the workarounds that you were doing? And what were some of like the things that like your mentor even brought to you or told you?
So my mentor at the time had, I want to say like 30 units that he had all on his own, no mortgage, which is amazing. He made way more money from that than from engineering. So it's still a mystery why he stuck around so long. But essentially he found all of my first deals and pretty much brought them to me. I obviously looked at the market every day, and I basically was a one-man show for quite a long time. Over time, I did side jobs, anything to save up more money so I can buy my next deal. What really launched it was the fact that he had another client that had a multifamily owner-occupied FHA that sort of fell through because the client decided to walk away. And he pretty much said to me, hey, listen, I have this deal. Before it goes back on the market, do you want it? And I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. So that was my first owner-occupied FHA loan. And that's the deal that really made me the most money. I think it was 3 units and 2 of them pretty much went to cover the mortgage. So the third unit was all profit. And at the time, I want to say Worcester rents for 1 bedroom were like $1,000. And by the time this thing closed, the rent was already like $1,200 or $1,400. So I was really excited with that, with those 3% rates. And so that one right there pretty much started like the snowball effect of not so much me having to save up all the money for the real estate, but myself and also the rentals from the cash flow starting to build up the reserves for that next down payment.
Yeah. So like you touched on 2 things there. One is kind of having that network or having relationships with people in real estate is really helpful because your realtor mentor essentially just brought you a deal without you even really looking for it. He was like, here, you should probably buy this. It's an opportunity and you could do this and this with it. And you're like, oh, snap. Okay. So that's super important. And I love that you touched on that because people always ask, like, how do you find deals? How do you get into your first property, et cetera? A lot of it has to do with just telling people what you're trying to do, being open-minded and having the right relationships. And that goes to show right there. And then another thing that you mentioned was getting that property using FHA loan. I think at the time, because this is during COVID, right? It was during like the 2020.
Yeah, I think it was 2022. It was the last property that I got with like 3.25% before they pretty much like jumped to 7% almost overnight.
Yeah, so like that alone is like, I mean, it's basically free money that you're getting because like inflation is more than that. So it's beautiful. And being able to get into that property with like a low down payment as well and live there and rent out the rest and cash flow, that's amazing. And I think at that time you couldn't do conventional loans at 5% yet because they still had that like little 20 to 25% they made you do. But FHA was the way to do it at that point. Were you familiar with FHA at that point, or did the realtor kind of explain it to you? Like, what was your taking on that? And then what was like the math behind it? Like, what were you trying to get with your first property?
Well, so I knew about the concept of FHA. I was listening to Bigger Pockets almost every day at work while I was doing stuff. And so I had a background in it, but I never had any real experience because I thought, oh, either I make too much to qualify or for, whatever reason, I'll just stick to the strategy that I was doing before. And so I saved up another, I want to say 20 or 30 grand, and I was going to buy the next condo with it. And then once this deal fell through, my mentor and I were actually working on one of his units. We were doing a flip. And I think it was like late at night, he calls me up and says, hey, listen, I have this deal. It's a 3-unit. It's FHA. Do you want to take it before it goes in the market? And at the time, I was really excited because I thought that 3 units were a little bit out of reach just because you have to come so much to the table. And once he brought it to me, we did the math. It was around like 400,000. I had to bring 27,000 to the closing table and had another like 5 grand in closing costs. And it was already cash flowing day one because 2 units had tenants in them. They were paying low rent, but it was still doing pretty good. And then another unit was empty. So either I could move in or I could put in a tenant in there pretty much max market rent. And so I pretty much jumped on it. I did all the paperwork and I was able to get it closed before the seller's agent got too mad and walked away from us because we were taking so long to close on it.
Yeah. I mean, was that part of FHA? Is that why? Because like FHA takes a little bit longer. Is that?
Yeah, we had so many hoops to jump through. It was ridiculous. Like I remember at one point, the inspector didn't like the fact that there was peeling paint on like the basement bricks at the bottom. Like who the F cares about that? But in order to be compliant, we were like, all right, listen, we'll get it done. So my realtor and I literally went there at night, scraped the paint off, and then gave it like a 1 coat so that we go to the inspector, hey, look, it's finished. Don't worry about it. The next thing. And then they went out there, they looked at it, everything was good. But then, something about the compliance of the roof or something, like the fascia wasn't good enough for them because whatever reason. All right, we had to talk to the seller again. Let's go 50-50. It's only 5 grand. We'll pay a local guy, install it per code, and take my half off the closing costs. All right, done. Like next hoop. Oh, they didn't like something about the insurance. It was a million hoops. I never had that much trouble closing before until I dealt with FHA, but I'm also glad I did because that property was such a steal. And at 27,000 down payment, you get a 3-unit property in the Worcester area is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's a beauty of FHA. I mean, there's pros and cons with it, obviously, because you can bring less money to the table to be able to leverage and get like a really good asset, especially if it's a multifamily and you're house hacking. It's perfect. Like, why wouldn't you do it? But the con of it is, it's a little bit more red tape. So like they look at things and like they mention stuff that you're kind of like, why? But it's just part of the process. It's a government funded loan. And that's why anytime the government gets involved, it's a little bit more of a pain. And that's why a lot of sellers were asking for like conventional at sometimes. So like no FHA, want conventional.
So I'm asking about FHA because it's so difficult. You usually have to offer a little bit more money to make it more enticing for the seller.
Yep.
But the basically conventional wisdom at the time was get your FHA, wait a year, refinance into a regular mortgage. So you have another FHA eligibility, go use it again to get another 3% down payment loan and just keep rolling it that way. But once I got mine, almost immediately the rates went up to 7 and there was no way I could come up with enough cash or enough appreciation to refinance out of it. Plus it's at such a low rate that I'll probably never see 3% in my life again. So I think I'm just stuck with it for the rest of my life and I have to find other ways to finance properties from here on out.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's like, dang, I have to keep this property at 3.5%. But it's like a bank that's just constantly growing. And in 30 years, numbers, like the $400,000 3 units going to be worth like over $1 million, especially with the trajectory of Worcester. Right now, it's probably already worth like what, 600,000 plus, maybe even 7. Worcester blew up pretty fast with appreciation. So that's why I say, like, sometimes when you're house hacking and getting into a property with such low amount of money up front, it's fantastic, especially when you get cash flow. But if you can also get it in a market that's appreciating, it's just amazing because you're leveraging so much to then have that money appreciate just based on the market. And it goes to show with like your deal right there, it's already worked wonders. And you're going to look back and be like, thank God I bought that. So after that one, you did a similar thing, right? You just started going as fast as you can before the rates kind of went crazy. You just tried to do another one, right? Right after that one?
Yeah, I was doing pretty good. I was buying basically 2 properties a year. And then once the rates jumped to the 7s, the best I could do was 1 a year. But I started doing, I mean, basically, like, not going to lie, the market is a little bit tougher now. Money's more expensive, fewer properties on the market. Not so much bidding wars, but things are just priced so high that very few people can compete. And that really forced me to have to get more creative, find new avenues. So once that happened, I basically had to start looking at different off-market strategies because there's just not enough stuff on the market to choose from. I had to get into flipping to basically try to have a revenue stream to put into deals. So if I want to get more buy and holds, I have to do more flips to have the money for the larger down payments that are now required. So, I mean, sure, it's tough, but I don't really look at it that way. I'm just looking at, all right, what can I do to adapt? What can I do to keep moving forward?
Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit. So you have the house hacks that go on, and then obviously the rate shot up to like 6-7%, and that the rents haven't adjusted correctly to help support the properties with a price because the prices went up and the rates went up, both, which makes it very hard to make numbers work. Even for loans and FHA and whatever, they have like those rules where it has to cash flow like a certain amount anyway to close. So you've switched over to kind of looking at flipping, which is interesting because that's kind of like a similar route that I took. How's that going for you, and what do you usually focus on in the market that you're in, and just break down kind of your thoughts on that and your process with it?
So basically, I look at 2 different things for flips. One is I'm starting to kind of specialize in flipping condos because honestly, I think condos are a hidden gem. They cost less than a single family house. And if you're sticking to exclusively cosmetics, so no crazy gut rehabs or anything, but if you find a unit that's been flooded or you find a unit that's just super outdated, you can find a unit for like 100 to 150,000, put about 15 to 20 grand of work into it and sell it for almost 300. Whereas if you're buying a single family house or a duplex, which is what most flippers do, you're going to spend at least 4x that for, roughly the same returns. And there's so many condos in the Northeast, man. I really don't understand why more people don't focus on them. It is such a moneymaker in terms of ROI and in terms of how little labor really needs to go into it. So that's the first thing I do. The second thing I do is I'm actually partnering with our friends, Zach and Andrew, that are doing like, 10 flips a year or something like that. But essentially I'm helping them run it, and I'm doing a lot of the managing of the contractors, managing of the money, making sure work gets done, dealing with permits, dealing with the city. And for that, I get a piece of the upside. So I don't have to come with so much money out of pocket, but I do what I do best, which is the property management aspect of it, and then get a little bit something at the end for my troubles that I can put towards my own portfolio.
Yeah, love that. And you mentioned 2 things there. One is finding like a niche in condos. So when you do invest, especially with fix and flipping and real estate as a whole, you kind of want to find like your niche. And you focus on the condos because one, the timeline to flip it is probably much quicker, which means you have less holding costs and more profit on the back end faster. You stick with mostly cosmetic stuff, nothing that's full gut, which also helps with timeliness and also helps with less of a headache because you don't have to deal with like probably permitting and a lot of that BS that you deal with. Some towns you probably still have to, but for the most part, probably don't really need to. And it's a lot more quick, especially when you just do like floors, paint, like update fixtures, lighting, and then update the kitchen and bathrooms. Like that's the best because it's pretty quick. And once you get the contractors on the same page as you, pretty much just like, hey, doing the same thing here that we did on the last one. Like, here's our budget. Can you do it? And they're like, yep. And you're like, all right, have fun. I'll come visit every now and then to make sure it's going right. That's when it gets fun. And it becomes a little bit more, I guess, less active, which is, I mean, flipping's active no matter what, but it's, you get to get a little more of your time back. Yeah. And then, you mentioned you're finding other ways in this market because it is very tough. It's one of the toughest real estate markets. I mean, I feel like we've been saying that for like 3 years as these rates have been going up, but it keeps getting tougher because it just keeps going up and nothing's really changing.
Well, it's interesting because originally when I was looking, so my last 3-deckers that I bought, I was pricing them out. Okay, what's it going to be with 7% rates with current rents? All right, it's like maybe cash flowing $200 on a good day, but any day now. They'll lower them and I can refinance and I'll get an extra $1,000 a month of cash flow any day now. And then a year later still hasn't happened. And while rents are like slowly inching up, it's starting to feel like 7% is here to stay. So either you just got to hold on and weather the storm till the rents go up, or find a different way to refinance. Because if you bought and you didn't pencil it out the property working in that current condition in that current market, you're probably underwater by now. So I'm really lucky that my properties that I found worked both if you were to wait to refinance, if that ever happens, and the day that I bought them, they also worked if I got, the rents up to market rent, some renovations to attract the tenants, and pretty much got all the expenses dialed. So that honestly is what saved me on my last two projects, because these 7% rates are definitely sticking around longer than I expected.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people do say, like you were saying, they're like waiting for the rates to drop to make a move and etc. For yourself, you saw that the rates were going up. Instead of waiting for the rates to drop, you pretty quickly realized, hey, maybe the multifamilies aren't working as well as they could right now, and it's not really working for me on my numbers. So then you pivoted. Based on the market to then start looking at fix and flips to build that amount of cash that you can then purchase a multifamily that makes it work better, or even time it better with the rates maybe do drop, or when rents finally go up more, etc. But you're preparing for like opportunities that will come for long-term investing by pivoting in the real estate investing world and doing those flips. So what do you find now that you're kind of focusing on the flips? Like, what's like the biggest challenge or difference that you have found between that and then like the long-term kind of investing that you started with? Like, and what do you like about it, and what do you not like about it, and vice versa about the two?
So for buy and holds, especially long-term stuff, it seems like there's a lot of competition and people already know what things are priced at. The only really kind of way to win in that game is to just offer more money than the next person. But if your projections are out far enough, it'll eventually either make money or appreciate. So if you're looking at a 2-year window, maybe it's not so great, but if you're looking at a 10-year window, it definitely is a good buy, even if you have to kind of suffer for the first couple of years, and that's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But with flips, you pretty much have a very short time horizon. You're going to buy it, you're going to probably sell it within the same year, maybe a couple of months down the road. So you can't really afford to outbid the next person. You have to find how to get it cheaper on the buy. And so pretty much before, there used to be so many deals in the markets, you kind of just pick and choose whatever one you want. You're like, do you want a 12% return on this one or a 15% return on that one? I don't know. I'm going to wait for a 17. But now that's not really an option anymore. So the thing that I started doing was going off market. So I had a couple of friends that were doing mailers. I had a couple of friends that were doing cold calls, or others were using different Facebook groups to find people that found properties for them. And so I just kind of started to dabble in a couple of different strategies. And I said, hey, what are you doing over here? How are you doing your mailers? And he said, oh, do it this way. Here's a template. And then here's how you pull lists. And then here's how you send them out and take calls from people. I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot. Found my first couple deals and pretty much stuck with that route. And the great thing actually that I really like about being in the Boston area, there's enough people doing real estate of all kinds of different strategies and paths of life, from midterm to short term to wholesaling, that any problem that you run into, you'll probably find a person that's already done it, especially in my friend network, that you can ask them for either guidance or help, or say, hey, I have this issue, or do you have any ideas on how to solve this? Somebody's going to give you an idea. Somebody's already going to give you a method that they tried. And so that's essentially what I did when I pivoted. Was I went around to all my friends and tried all the different methods that were already working for them. So I didn't have to reinvent the wheel so much.
Yeah, that's important to do. Is sure, you can go into stuff yourself and just learn as you go. But usually, one, it takes longer to like actually be successful, which is fine. And you learn a lot, but you can make a big mistake off the rip, especially in real estate, that you can lose a lot of money on, and then it sets you back pretty far. So having a good network and like good friends and even like mentors to ask those questions to kind of bypass that initial learning curve is super important. And with you being in the area of New England and meeting a lot of people that invest in real estate and leveraging that opportunity and that friendship to help you, it's super smart. And what people don't realize is in real estate, most people have an abundance mindset. So like they want to help each other out. So never be afraid to ask someone like, how do I do this? Or like, I go into this problem, like, what would you do? Pretty much every single person I've met in real estate will give you an answer and like try to help you out. The ones that don't, obviously you just don't really want to talk to them or be part of them anymore, because they don't have like that right abundance mindset that you want to keep around anyway. And there's a few of those people, and usually I forget about them pretty quick because I stop talking to them, because I just know that's how they are.
So I think the impression a lot of people get is if they're looking at the real estate world from the outside, they think, oh, there's so many investors. If I jump into this pool, there's already a lot of fish. How is there enough deals for everybody? But then once you jump into real estate, you realize, no. Real estate investors almost never compete with each other. One deal might work for this guy. If it doesn't, he'll pass it on to his friend. Maybe it'll work for him. Or they'll find some deal that maybe it takes a few investors to take down together because none of them can do it individually. Your real competition isn't actually other real estate investors as much as it is people that are looking for a forever home or people that have a family and they need housing now, and they're going to really outbid you because real estate investors, they have a very specific buy box. They will not buy this property more than this price. If they get into a bidding war, they have a very clear ceiling past which is just not going to make their numbers. Whereas a person that maybe has a family that wants to live somewhere for 5-10 years, raise a kid, raise a dog, they'll outbid you 20 grand. They'll go to their grandma and grandpa and get extra money. They don't care how much money they're going to lose per month because they're not looking at it as a profit or an ROI standpoint. They're looking at it as, I need to get this house for my family no matter what. And so those are the people that really become your competition.
Yeah, that's where the importance of finding properties off market helps because you can make sure that it doesn't get out to retail before, all the MLS buyers come in hot and they buy with emotion. Because they're not looking at they look at it a little bit math, based on how much they make, how much they can afford as a mortgage, but it's also very emotional. If they have a family, they're like, oh, I love this house.
In love with a place.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do to outbid them. Whereas for you, it's I don't care if it's ugly. I don't care if it's got an amazing backyard. What's the rents? What are the numbers? Does it hit my ROI numbers? If yes, then let's bid.
Yeah, exactly. And you can find stuff on MLS too. They're a little harder. Usually you have to either snipe it really quick and talk to the seller really quick, right when it's listed, or it has to be there for a while. And then usually the ones that are there for a while do have some issues, and half the time it's the seller just not budging on the price. Yeah, that's why it's important to go off market, kind of bypass the kind of retail market. And at that point, it's kind of just investors just have numbers, and you're competing with investors' numbers. And if a deal doesn't work for them based on their numbers, but they know it works for you, they'll bring it to you. They just want to, everybody helps each other out in investing, which is really cool. And that's what people don't realize. Awesome. So to dive a little bit more into what you've got going on and what you have been doing, do you currently have any flips going on right now, or did you just finish? I think you just finished one a little bit ago, right? But you have one that you're working on right now that you could dive into a little bit?
Sure. So I'm currently working on 2 flips at the moment. One is we got a condo under contract about a month and a half ago through the sending mailers to folks. And this was actually kind of a gem because I sent out about, I want to say 600 mailers. I spent about $300 on it. And I maybe got 3 calls, which apparently is pretty normal.
That's pretty good. That's actually, that's good.
Yeah. And so 2 calls kind of went nowhere, but one of them, the guy says, yeah, sure, I'm thinking about selling my property. We did the numbers. We offered him a sort of a lower number, but it also needed some work. So it was a fair number. And then the deal went so good. He said, actually, I have 6 more units in this building. If you're interested, I'm looking to offload all of them. I'm like, hell yeah. So that one mailer resulted in hopefully 5 more deals for us. But essentially, we got a condo for $130,000. I want to say that if we do nothing else, it can probably be easily $150,000. So I was thinking of potentially wholesaling it, but we decided to keep it. We want to do a renovation. Currently, the tenant is paying $700 a month, which is a steal. And we raised his rent to $1,400, and we gave him 3 months. If he chooses to move out, perfect. We'll dive right into the work. It's going to need about 20 grand. Basically, just same thing: cosmetics, new flooring, new bathroom, kitchen cabinets, new countertops, tile, and then the comps in that same building are all above 200,000. So there's a lot of potential upside if you get it to that luxury level to get that maximum market rent or sale price. And so we're excited. We're going to try to start that hopefully next month, assuming that the tenant does not take us up on the higher end.
Yeah, in worst case, he takes over the higher rent, and that thing's probably cash flowing pretty dang good, honestly.
Yeah. We'll just sit on it, and then when he moves out, that's when we'll do the renovation. That's actually one thing that I learned throughout my real estate investing journey is that when I started, I was very gung-ho about you have to make every unit super nice. You have to make all the renovations to get that market rent. But in reality, if you just raise rent a little bit on a tenant and then you don't have to do any renovations, or especially if you're dealing with Section 8, where you're getting money from the government and you just tell them, hey, I'm putting in a request for raising the rent, and the government just says, okay, there's really no reason to sink 20 grand into a renovation of a unit, because if you're looking at the ROI on it, let's say you're getting $1,000 a month, but you could potentially be getting, let's say, 1,300, but it's going to cost you 15,000 upfront to get that extra $300 a month in rent. That thing is going to take a couple of years to pay off. Versus if you can say, without doing any renovations, hey, can you handle paying 11 or 1200 a month? Would that be fair? It's not quite market, but it's a little bit more. And if the tenant says sure, you just bought yourself an extra $200 a month, which equates to how many thousand per year without having to put a penny of renovation into it. That's a much better ROI. And then you can do that full gut renovation, make it beautiful after he moves out, maybe in a year or two. But you really can just take the easy win, raise the rent a little bit instead of a lot, and not do any renovations. That saves you a ton of money up front.
Yeah, it comes to like that's a perfect example of not getting emotional about the deals. It's more just looking at the math behind it, and then also talking to the tenants. And real estate, it's not just all about properties, it's people to people. So you just got to explain to the tenants like, hey, paying this much is what market rent usually is. Are you okay with paying that? And then if they're okay with it, like there's really you're not their full gut the unit, or you have multiple exits at that point, because you can just hold it and have a cash flow. And then when it does go vacant, you can then decide to renovate the unit to a certain point, or try to put another tenant in for that amount that you were getting. You have a ton of different options. And yeah, so it's smart to do it that way. You don't have to like overly renovate every single unit. You got to make it livable, obviously. Like you got to fix the stuff that's needed. So like usually when I have a tenant in that situation, I'll raise their rent and I'll be like, give me a list of what like needs to be fixed here. Like, we just bought the property. Like, what do you have to get? What needs to be fixed here? And then I'll fix it. And it's usually like minor stuff. It's like some replacing some outlets or lights, fixtures and things like that. Maybe like a grand or two of work. And then you can raise the rent or have a conversation with them to raise it like $200-$300. And that, yeah, again, that equals like $2,400 or $3,600 a year increase from that rent, which then pays back what you put into it right away. You don't have to go in and put like 10 to 15 grand into it, like you said. So it's all just, it's math and the common sense in a way.
Exactly. And honestly, not everybody cares about a super brand new, beautiful apartment, because from a tenant standpoint, maybe the toilet leaks, or maybe there's a couple of bad floorboards that might need replacing. That's only a couple of grand for you. We're looking at it from like, how does the picture on the ad look like? We want brand new cabinets. A lot of tenants really don't care about the cabinets. Hey, do they have drawers? Do they hold my stuff? Perfect. I don't need them to be brand new, whatever's in right now, the two-tone, shakers from Home Depot that cost $10,000 to install. They've been living there for a couple of years. They'll be living there for a couple more years. They're used to seeing them every day. They're not trying to make it glamorous on their pictures or on their ad shots like we are.
Yeah, exactly. And then, yeah, to touch back on how you found that deal too, mailers are probably one of the best off-market ways to get properties that people kind of throw, like they don't think about. They think like, oh, mailers, that's so old school, it doesn't really work.
Whatever is old school will probably work better today, because if you think about, most marketers are going after whatever's like the hot new thing. When cell phones first came out, everybody's calling you. Then email was big, everybody sends you an email. And so whatever medium is popular, you're probably getting bombarded with it so much, you're going to ignore it. You're sick of it. Whereas the thing that is so old school that nobody does it anymore, when you get a letter physically in the mail, like, oh, wow, I haven't gotten these in a long time, and it does just for me, it catches a little bit more attention. So once physical mail starts to become more and more popular, then we have to figure out what else is the most unused thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like that. I remember seeing like a cartoon or like a meme of like some person that's getting like a ton of emails or phone calls, and they're like whatever, and then they go home and they have like one piece of mail, and they're like, ooh, yay, because it's like something physical and it's different. It's like, even me, like I enjoy going to get mail. Like I'm like, oh, what do I have today? Even if it's bills, I'm like, ooh. I'm not like happy it's a bill, but I'm like, oh, wow, I actually got like a physical piece of something to me.
Newspaper ads will become the big new thing soon. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, mailers are great because one, they're not restricted. Like the government is starting to restrict on phone calls. They're starting to restrict on cold calling. They're starting to restrict on texting. So it's getting like, there's a lot of legal parameters around that. Mailers would never honestly get that because it's just mail and the government makes money off of it because you pay for postage anyway. So they don't care. And then same with like voicemail drops, emails, all that stuff. Like all the technological stuff is getting kind of, the legalities around it are getting a little up in the air. So that's why mailers are great. And then two, mailers are pretty inexpensive. Yes, you should budget quite a bit, but like for your scenario, you paid $300 to send out 600 mailers and you got a deal. That's not gonna happen every time, but when it happens, like you paid $300 for an opportunity that you can make probably 20 to 30K on. Like that's pretty freaking good returns on your marketing, and you have an additional possible 5 more from it. So that's like very large return on investment on marketing. But yeah, most of the time, like it's just, you just want to create those off-market lead generating tools. And for mailers, it might take like 3 to 6 months to get the deal locked up. But as long as you do the math on it, like for me personally, say I send out $3,000 of mailers a month and it takes 6 months to get a deal, that's $18,000. But then in that deal, I can make $50,000 to $60,000 on it. Like that's pretty good returns based on the marketing. And then as you keep doing it consistently, it just amps up and ramps up and ramps up. Plus, it gives you the opportunity to go direct to seller, which gets you a better ability to get a better price compared to like working with wholesalers or working with real estate agents, etc. All of them should be used, but it's just different pros and cons of everything, which is really cool. But awesome. Thank you for diving into that one. And I do want to ask you a little bit more about kind of like lessons that you've learned over doing this now. So from going from long-term investing to now flipping and handling multiple flips at a time and working with other partners on flips like Andrew and Zach that you mentioned, like what have you learned within the realm of partnerships and working with people and within real estate? Like anything you could touch on in there?
Sure. As far as working with partners, I'm definitely still learning a lot because the first few years of my investing journey, I was definitely a one-man show, from finding my own deals to managing them to doing open houses to doing fixes. And one thing that I either heard somewhere or maybe I read, I think it was Grant Cardone that said, if you're trying to do all of the real estate deals all with your own money, that's actually the lazy way of doing it. The better way of doing it is obviously to find partners, to find people that back you financially so you can do a small piece of the deal, which is the legwork or management side of things, and then not have to bring all of your own money to the table all the time. But an issue that basically I'm running into a lot of times is either I'll find a deal, but no other partner will want to go in on it, or I will have partners that want to do deals, but we all kind of have like the same fatal flaw. Maybe we're all good operators, but none of us are very good at finding the deal, or we're all trying to do the same piece, which is the construction piece, but almost nobody has any, like, for example, investor relations. And so a big piece of working together is, while it may be enticing to basically find a bunch of like-minded folks that are all ambitious about the same thing, it's actually the diversity of skill sets that you want to look for. Maybe you don't necessarily like vibe with an older guy that maybe has a lot of money but isn't as ambitious as you are about finding the next deal, or maybe he's not as tech savvy, or maybe he doesn't even have the same hobbies or interests to talk about, but he has the things that you're not good at and you're good at the things that he's not good at. And so that actually makes you a much better partnership than if you find a bunch of guys at the local real estate meetup and you're all very excited about doing flips because you're all operators in flips. You guys are all bringing the same strengths to the table and you all have the same weaknesses, which pretty much makes you almost useless to each other.
No, yeah, you hit on a perfect point there. So partnerships, they're super strong because you can offload a lot of work amongst each other and be able to take on more. You get less burnout because if you're doing everything yourself, honestly, you will get a little burnt out doing stuff because you're gonna be like, Jesus, I gotta wear all these hats. So sometimes it's even better to take like a profit split and do more deals with more partners because you're taking on more and you have more of that risk spread across you guys and the work spread across as well. But you hit on something perfect, which is like not every partner is going to be great. You got to find ones that really balance you out. Like you said, for example, maybe someone is the deal finder and is good at the admin work and is like technically savvy that can like set up spreadsheets and things like that. And the other one might be, the operator that once the deal is closed and ready to go, that person is the one that is managing the project to make sure that it gets done. And both those people have different skills and both those people are good at those skills and maybe they don't like the other part of it. And because of that, they work well together and they get shit done, apparently, like pretty much. So that's super important that you mentioned that because you can't just find someone and just partner with them. It's kind of like it's like a relationship. So it's like having a boyfriend or you're having a girlfriend. You got to make sure that you guys vibe together and work well. It's not just about the money and the business. It's about working well together. And I'm sure I've had situations where I worked with someone and it doesn't work and you got to just come to the facts and realize and talk it out that it's probably not going to work or you got to fix it, because if you just keep going down that road, it's going to be a headache. And I'm sure you've had situations like that before too. So it's all part of like finding the right people by not really guessing checking, but you got to make sure that upfront you understand what your guys' goals are and what you guys looking to do and what you guys' strengths are. And then you can cohesively work well together. So that's super important. I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, exactly. I think the best, I guess not the best, but I think the most successful partnerships that I've usually come across, at least in my journey, is it's not like the two young hustlers that are gung-ho about taking deals together. It's the one young hustler that's gung-ho and the rich uncle. Or maybe it's like the older guy at work that's trying to retire soon and he's got this fat nest egg of a bunch of money money, but he's too tired and he's got family and he's got kids and he can't really have time to deal with all these properties, but you can. And that's actually the partnership that'll take down 2-3 deals a year versus the two guys that have all the ambition in the world, but none of them have any money. So they're just ambitious in a circle running around together, seeing where they can get the cheapest deal.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a really good, it's like a, what do they call it? It's like a tag team duo. And you gotta support each other. What is it?
Symbiotic relationship, I think.
So yeah, exactly. That's what it is. But cool. So I know we're running up on an hour here, so I want to start closing this down a bit since you're pretty busy yourself, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But I do like to end with like a few questions just to dive a little bit deeper into how people can help themselves in real estate and just self-development as well. So one question I like to ask is, over the years of you investing and getting into it and pivoting to different investing strategies, what's kind of be like best piece of advice to new investors who want to get into real estate, especially in this tough market? Because it's one of the toughest markets, I think, while I don't know if it's history wise. I mean, the Great Depression was probably pretty dang tough too, and the 2008 was pretty tough, but it's definitely one of the tougher markets. So like, what advice would you give to new investors trying to get into it?
I think the thing that a lot of people that I talk to that want to get into real estate investing think is that it's some kind of like outside thing for them. Whereas, maybe they live over here and they have their family or they have their place that they live and work, and then investing has to happen over here somewhere. They have to go find a deal. They have to go put a tenant in there, etc. But honestly, the best deals, especially in a tough market, I feel are actually live-in flips, which is where you put aside a little bit of your own comfort and maybe you have to move that's a little bit further from work, or maybe you have to share a space with somebody else. But it's actually the most efficient way to get into a property or to get into an appreciation play. Because, for example, like we're sitting here, this house is a 3-unit and I have a tenant above me and below me. When I bought it, my mortgage was $6,000 a month and it is still $6,000 a month. So it doesn't necessarily cost me any extra to live here. But while I live here, I redid the cabinets one week, I redid the floors the next week, painted the following month, and I had some tile put in. So like all the work you see here, I did it in a span of maybe about 3 or 4 months. But the entire time that I was doing this work, the cost of living was the same. I didn't have to come up with a bunch of money out of pocket. Basically, as I kind of took home an extra paycheck from work, I put it into this place. And then once it's all done, I'll go move to the upstairs unit. This unit becomes a rental. I'll get the top dollar for it. And I'll do it again and again and again until the whole place is renovated. And then I'll move out and I'll live somewhere else. Maybe rent a room, or maybe I'll find my next deal. But essentially, a live and flip is a way that you can get into a property and do renovations on it as you go along. You still need a roof over your house. Might as well do it. Plus, you can do a lot of the work yourself. I mean, YouTube is amazing for how to do small fixes, how to paint something, how to paint some cabinets. And so a lot of people that maybe think that you need a big chunk of change to get started in real estate, or maybe you have to put up a bunch of money and have a tenant and have a property management company, et cetera, et cetera. No, you can move into a duplex and rent out one side, do the work while you live there. It's super economical. You can do it at your own pace. And the appreciation that you're going to force on it, that's what's going to pay for your next investment. So I would say that's the way to get started, especially in a tough market.
Oh yeah, and that's perfect. It's like, I think my first deal was a live and flip, my first big deal. So
you bought a condo and you had a roommate, and then you were doing work on it while your roommate was there. And you had to. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think one of the best ways to get into real estate in this market is by doing a house hack if it works and it's feasible and it's making sense. Even if you can't do that, if you don't have enough money to do that, then just do a condo that you live in that's outdated, and then you can fix it up as you're there. It's crazy how much maybe like $10,000 of renovation can do, because that could basically be, especially if you do it yourself, right? Because that can replace your whole kitchen, that can paint the whole place, that can update and paint bathrooms, that can update fixtures. You do that alone, like your property is going to increase value. Still, obviously, look at like how much you're buying it for and how much the ARV would be after doing that to make sure it makes sense. But like in my scenario, when I bought my condo, I bought it for like 145. I think it was like 145,000. I put like $15,000 into it and like redid the kitchen. I like put down some carpet and painted and redid some flooring. And I sold it for, after a year of living there, I sold it for $225,000. And it was like a $70K profit, which was not only a $70K profit, but it was tax-free because you're living there as a primary residence, and there's tax codes that allow you to take that money tax-free. Because if you live there like a certain amount of time out of the past 5 years, you can take a percentage up to a certain amount tax-free. So it is one of the most feasible ways to get into real estate. It's one of the best ways to learn, especially about renovating if you do it yourself. And you just learn like the basic numbers. And it's the least risky because you're living there. It's not like you have a hard money lender breathing down your neck, or somebody like breathing down your neck, like an investor that invested money with you. It's you yourself and you, I guess, whatever. But you learn a lot, you can get it done, and you can make a pretty good, decent profit. That's perfect. That's really good advice. That's the first time that I've heard someone bring that up again. Live and flip. And that's one of my favorites. Live and flip it's like a thing that people don't talk about a lot. It's one of the best. It's living flips. So yeah, I want to finish off with 2 more questions. These are pretty quick. I always ask these. You kind of mentioned a book in the beginning, but just want to see if you have any other ideas of real estate books as well. So like, what is your favorite business, investing, self-help book or like podcast that you listen to that you would recommend to like our listeners that helped you out on your journey?
When I first got started, the book on managing real estate properties by Brandon Turner was like the Bible to me, because that thing was so detailed step by step on how to manage a property, how to do an open house, how to screen tenants, how to tell them, oh no, can't have pets, or if something happens, basically how to deal with them, how to give them notices. It gets into like the most minute details, like when you're doing an open house, go walk them out to their car as you say goodbye. Just kind of like look in the windows. Is the car messy? Because that's how your apartment's going to be. Do they have crap all over the floor? Your apartment's going to have crap all over the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And you follow that thing step by step, you're going to be a professional rental manager. Is going to have all the details in there. So that thing was like the Bible to me when I got started. I read that thing cover to cover. And honestly, man, that right there is all you need to know about managing rentals.
Yeah, I think Brandon Turner has 3 really good books. That one's a yellow one, right?
Yeah.
It's like a white with a yellow. Yeah, white with yellow font. And then he has 2 other ones. One is just buying rental properties. So I think it's white with a blue font. And there's one with like how to buy real estate with no money down. That's white with red. And yeah, those 3 books right there, like that's what got me going, is those 3 books exactly. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's like those 3, that's all you need. Those 3, he breaks down everything Barney style. You're going to be like, oh, this makes so much sense. And then you kind of just work from there. But yeah, those books I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of my favorite books too. Nobody's brought that up either. We must be in sync. We must know each other or something. So yeah, we'll wrap this up real quick. And I like to just leave the floor to you and just tell the audience how they could reach out to you if they wanted to, or ask questions. So like social media handles, meetups that you go to, run or attend, any charity events, businesses, links, where to find you, etc. Just the floor is yours.
Sure. So if you're in the Boston area, definitely reach out. I love to talk shop. I like to talk real estate. I'll definitely go through all my deals with you if you're interested. Also, I go to a lot of meetups in the area. I'll at least go to 2 a month. So the biggest ones for me are simplified meetups, which are hosted by Candle Realty. There's a big one in Lowell. There's one in Worcester. There's a few in the Boston area as well. And then you can always reach out to me on Instagram. It's Artem Sopot. Just look at the link in the handle.
Yep. And I'll put all the links to his Instagram and social media and things like that in the bio as well. So you guys can reach on out to Artem and annoy him and bug him with all your questions. Absolutely. And he'll help you because he's nice. But all right, it was great having you on, Artem. I'm excited to keep seeing what you're doing and watching your growth. And yeah.
Thanks so much for having me, man. Let's do this again soon.
Absolutely. And thank you all for listening. See ya.